Well, this is something that I've always wanted to do. Review Avatar. No, not that one. Ha, definitely not that one. But Avatar The Last Airbender. Not only for the reason that I get to explain all the things that I love about this show, but that I get to re-watch it for the 20th time. Plus, I recently convinced some friends to watch the show and they absolutely loved it, especially as I couldn't help myself adding in all the extra bits of lore and the classic "did you know that?" Also, massive shout out to the other channels that have already done stuff like this before. You guys are the motivation for me to do this, so hopefully I can positively contribute to the Avatar fanbase. Now, without further ado, let us enter the world of Avatar. We are initially brought up to speed with the story as narrated by Katara. This provides a great overview of the story in a succinct manner. And then the tune comes in. Oh, here it is. So let's get started. We're introduced to two of the main characters. Sokka's first line is delivered with a self-assured smile and coupled with a cocky and somewhat patronising attitude.
It's not getting away from me this time. Watch and learn, Katara. This is how you catch a fish.
We are then introduced to Katara, who attempts to use her waterbending in order to catch a fish. However, her brief facial expression clearly illustrates that she is lacking in the confidence and not as self-assured as her older brother. Katara then successfully manages to capture a fish via her bending and is ecstatic to show Sokka. However, he is completely uninterested and only focused on his hunt, but this is met with some immediate karmic retribution.
Hey!
Why is it that every time you play with magic water, I get soaked?
Sokka bemoans about her magic, but Katara then introduces us, the audience, to its correct terminology, which is waterbending.
It's not magic, it's water bending.
However, Sokka remains dismissive and completely ignores its historical roots, importance, etc.
It's water bending. And it's
Yeah, an ancient art unique to our culture, blah, blah, blah.
This could be perhaps due to him not being able to perform any particular bending, and could in fact be a hint at a larger insecurity for him.
Look, I'm just saying that if I had weird powers, I'd keep my weirdness to myself.
We then get Sokka shifting the blame entirely to Katara for not waterbending them to safety,
Well, maybe you should have waterbended us out of the ice.
whilst being particularly sexist in his comments.
Leave it to a girl to screw things up.
This causes Katara to hit out with a fierce and strong verbal rebuttal to Sokka's comments.
you are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained... I'm embarrassed to be related to you.
This is a nice early hint at the powers that Katara possesses, and as you can see, some of the waves are being created behind her as she challenges Sokka. At this stage, her waterbending manifests through emotional outbursts, but presently she cannot control them. However, this is demonstrated when you can hear in her voice.
You mean I did that?
We are then introduced to this large iceberg. I think there might be a boy in there. Boom! Now here is Zuko's first entry on the screen. When he sees the light, it is initially of genuine surprise given the wide eye and raised eyebrow. This is only short-lived as the face quickly becomes stern, focused and determined. What's interesting though is that the other eye, the one that is damaged or burned, does not actually react the same way. That's a nice bit of detail.
Finally.
His first line is "finally," which tells us that not only has he been looking for something for a long time, but that he is determined to at least investigate. We at the audience don't really know what he is looking for. Oh, here he is, Uncle Iroh, one of my favourite characters and probably yours too. He does not only provide the best advice, but his overall philosophy and attitude is something that we should all strive for. God, I love this guy. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's a future episode. Iroh's first line,
I won't get to finish my game.
is not only light and humorous, but is also very calming. This is backed up with the tea and card game or board game which is on the table. Both of these depict a level of patience and calmness, quite the opposite to Zuko. I like how Zuko immediately jumps to the fact that it has to be him.
That light came from an incredibly powerful source. It has to be him.
He is steadfast and completely assured that the light source is exactly what he's looking for.
It means my search.
It's about to come to an end.
Whereas Iroh continues to play his board or card game and offers balanced and somewhat potentially plausible excuses for the light.
Oh, it's just the celestial light. I don't want you to get too excited over nothing.
Although I'm not too sure what celestial lights would cause a straight linear beam, but hey, it's not my world. Zuko is not willing to accept any delay and orders the ship to set a course for the light.
Helmsman, head a course for the light.
His focus now explained.
I need to capture the Avatar. Stop!
This is the first Avatar state that we see on screen, and it completely depletes all of Aang's energy, so much so that he literally passes out, a theme that changes as time progresses. Okay, so we have this head poke thing which slightly annoys me, and whenever I am successful enough to convince someone to watch this show, I always have to explain that this is an incredibly childish gag and it's only short-lived, and it's fortunately not continued for too long into other episodes. Only the first few have these cheap jokes, but thankfully these get dropped. Aang looks at Katara. Aang's first lines are brilliant.
Please, come closer. Will you go penguin sledding with me?
It demonstrates his playful and childish nature whilst also being a little bit naive. I love how there's a contrast with Aang's easy use of airbending just to get up, and it isn't even a second thought, whereas Katara must expend a lot of energy and concentration just to get some low-level bending. Also, I only recently found out that apparently, as per the lore, Aang does not need to have any sort of thermal clothing. This is because he's a master of airbending, so he can maintain a comfortable body heat with the air around him. That's pretty cool, but can someone please fact check that for me, and I promise to give you a shout out in the next episode. Thank you.
This is Appa, my flying bison.
Right, and this is Katara, my flying sister.
What a joke. I absolutely love some of these lines that Sokka comes out with, and this one is just top tier. The sneeze gag is where again I find myself making excuses for the show at an early stage. I'm not a fan of this style, but then again, the show is aimed for like 7-year-olds, so maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh.
Giant light beams, flying bison, airbenders. I think I got Midnight Sun Madness.
Midnight Sun Madness? How does that work? Is it not daytime right now, or am I missing something? He's actually not sitting on Appa's head. Credit to overanalyzing Avatar on that one, but I'm sure I've got one that he missed, so I'll mention it when we get to it. Aang, come on bro, play it cool, she's gonna know.
Why are you smiling at me like that?
Oh, I was smiling?
See, even Sokka is onto you. I like how Iroh comes out and casually hints at the need for rest.
I'm going to bed now. Oh. Yep, a man needs his rest.
Then his face changes subtly since Zuzu isn't taking the hint and literally tells him he needs to get some sleep.
Prince Zuko, you need some sleep.
We are then given a flashback of Aang struggling through a storm, which quickly bests him. I always wondered how he managed to get into the Avatar state when he doesn't look conscious, but I reckon this is a safety mechanism from all the past Avatars wanting to protect the cycle. Again, if anyone knows, please let me know, and you too will be included in the next episode. Katara's discovery of Aang's tattoos is a bit confusing here. How did she not see them before? Like, I mean, they were literally all over his body, and not to mention his forehead.
Well, no one has seen an airbender in 100 years. We thought they were extinct.
The extinct reference is some pretty heavy stuff for a kids show. It clearly implies that everyone's perception is that the specific race of airbenders has been wiped out.
Extinct?
Again, love the mastery use of airbending here to get the stick back. Aang is just so nonchalant about it entirely, as it clearly comes so naturally. Very subtle, but I like it.
Magic trick, do it again. Not magic, airbending.
I love the fact that, similar to Sokka, the child says it's magic, and Aang's response is similar to Katara, stating that it's bending.
Not magic, airbending.
It's not magic, it's water bending.
Despite Zuko's firebending ability here, Iroh sees differently and can tell that Zuko's source of firebending is not coming from the correct place. Fire comes from the breath and not the muscles.
No, power in firebending comes from the breath, not the muscles.
Iroh then gives an explanation as well as a demonstration.
The breath becomes energy in the body. The energy extends past your limbs and becomes fire.
I love how that he has so much control that he can literally have a fire blast in Zuko's face and yet it does nothing to him. Obviously because Iroh is a master and can control the intensity, direction, etc. at ease. Although this may actually be a bit triggering for Zuko now that I think about it. One thing to flag at this point is that Zuko is actually ripped and his hair isn't a top knot. It's a theme that I want to return to over future episodes.
He's had a century to master the 4 elements. I'll need more than basic firebending to defeat him.
This just shows the immaturity of Zuko as he assumes that the Avatar has been training for 100 years, yet is still wanting to face the Avatar despite only being on the basic set of firebending. This hints at a much larger, motivating force compelling him to act in such a prompt manner. But what could that be? It's weird, I know this is supposed to be snow, but it has always looked like sand to me. What about you? The penguin sledding conversation is subtle and very interesting. It casually hints at the implications that war has on the children of the village. Katara is clearly enjoying herself with Aang and mentions that she hasn't done this since she was a kid.
I haven't done this since I was a kid. You still are a kid.
What I'm getting at here is that the war has forced these individuals, Sokka, Katara, etc., to grow up fast. It is a poignant point that is nicely interwoven into the dialogue.
Aang, how long were you in that iceberg? I don't know, a few days maybe? I think it was more like 100 years.
I love the face changes when Aang realises that he's been essentially cryogenically frozen for 100 years. He goes through a range of emotions that are all depicted in the body language, vocal tone and facial expressions. This is great work by the Avatar creation team, top tier. Oh, absolutely love the music, that is so good!
Hold on tight!
The Last Airbender. Quite agile for his old age.
That old joke is brilliant.
Wake my uncle! Tell him I found the Avatar.
Ooh, to be continued in the next episode.